Hey, Jeff.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, and you?
Good, good. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Just backtracking and catching up on the discussion from last time.
Yeah, I was trying to take a look at our timeline.
Actually, no, that's not a good idea. Okay. Update sheet, send RFC. Plan working update. Send RFC. Oh yeah, okay. Um, let me get secure. Okay. Hi, Randall and Nathan. We can give everyone about 2 more minutes before getting started, but Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Amir. Happy New Year, Jeff, Nathan.
Happy New Year.
Yeah, you too. Thanks.
So this is going to the Google Sheet. Okay. Here you go. Okay, we can go ahead and get started. We're at 5 minutes past the hour. Yes, it does. We are in fact recording today's session. Today is the 12th of January, 2023. So Happy New Year to everyone, and hope 2023 is a great year for everyone here and for OpenSSF and open source security as a whole. To give a quick recap, So at our last meeting of 2022 on the 15th, we had discussed the importance of really putting together a timeline and a timetable for putting out a set of critical projects that we can showcase, that we can put out and iterate from. Largely how that's going to how based on what we discussed for the time being, because we are shooting for March, the exact date being, yes, March 23rd of this year, to basically have a cut of a set of projects. So the way that we had discussed was to kind of break it down. We broke down the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 working group sessions. And the objective is to really take this time, these working group sessions, while we're all together, to focus on that and get that cut out. So for today, we have the main topic is to go over the plan, as well as an update, and begin updating the our list, or I'm sorry, our set. For the 26th, we're looking at doing yes, more a very dedicated session to just updating that first cut that we came up with. We put a break for 2/9 for February 9th. And then the 23rd of February would be for voting and discussion, as well as the 3/9, the March 9th meeting for voting and discussion. And then hopefully by the end of the March 23rd working group meeting, we can basically finalize the version and set. And then, yeah, I would highly recommend looking over some of the notes from the last meeting, because we kind of talked about kind of how to break that down and go through that. But largely it would consist of going through our first cut, determining what should stay, what should go, what to add, and then collaborate on a set of proposed deltas. So any of the new projects that we come up with, and then license download count. I'm just looking over these notes here. Okay. Yeah, and so largely that's how that's going to look. I figured the first thing that we can dive into would be really seeing how we can. Oh, sorry, I believe I heard some. Oh yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to add, because I did do some research. So it appears in OpenSSF there's a need for an actual unranked list, but there's a heavy opinion that if we can rank things, there are some people that would appreciate a ranked list. I don't know how you want to go about that, but I was talking to Brian about some other stuff and SKF mostly, and it did come up. And I was just relaying that I know that we said that we're going to be a set, but I think some projects are depending or are expecting us to have something that is actually curated is the key word.
Mm-hmm. I feel you on that. I think where that gets tricky is everyone is going to want to prioritize it based on their own criteria.
Correct.
So I think just getting this, I mean, everything on this set is going to be prioritized in a way. So, and I think as long as we get that out, I think prioritizing it, cutting it different ways is definitely a great next step. But I think really for the sake of what we're looking to get out, really all of them would be priority. I mean, that's really the point of the exercise, right? We're saying out of all these projects in the world, this is a set of ones that we think are important. So in a lot of ways, it is already, prioritized.
I think what it comes down to, Amir, is there are certain languages where you have strange cases. like JavaScript is a big one.
Yes, absolutely. And I would ideally I love the idea of the curation of it. The fact that we do this as a work group would allow us to capture kind of those weird edge cases and really have a forum or a place to consider those.
And if I can update the notes real quick, so I have a list also of what we're pulling in the GitHub thing. So
Okay.
I pulled everything minus criticality score. If you go to the criticality score page, he has a sample on there of what you can pull now, like number of contributors, date of last commit. I mean, he has a lot of stuff that, not a lot of stuff, but a fair amount. So basically, I'm just taking all of that and posting it into a comment. And I kind of explained that. But I think, as I said, that I kind of specifically said that we're not going to be ranking them per like order of importance or order of criticality score or any order whatsoever. You either make the list or you don't. It's kind of pass or fail, and it's kind of a community opinion. So, yeah. Like all of these numbers are not they're not going to make you pass or fail. They will just give people an idea of the health of the project, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, when we did the last list, we had discussed, doing subsets or buckets of, to group them in. We probably would never do like an exact ranked order of 100 packages because that's just too tedious. But yeah, I mean, breaking the list down into subsets is something that we discussed that we could do as a next step. But I think since that it's been a while since we have the list, I think it's important. I think it's more important to proceed forward with getting the updated list. And then we can think about doing the buckets afterwards.
I agree with that.
Yes, absolutely. So so thankfully we have a rough a plan in place. Hopefully, we'll make good use of this time that we have in our working group sessions to put something together. So looking at the notes, one thing I'm curious about is essentially how we're going to track like version control of this process. I know that our GitHub repository could be a good at least place for it to house this. And I know GitHub is pretty good with kind of tracking version control of stuff, but I thought I would kind of open up to discussion, kind of if we had any thoughts or insight on as to how we're going to go from version 1 to version 1.1 in a way where we can kind of track what actually went into going from A to B.
I mean, I think we still need to use a Google Sheet. I think the question is, do we use a new tab in our existing sheet, or do we copy it? Tab is nice because it's right there, but copying it means we could have like different links. There'd be different artifacts, right? We could have a link to one and a link to the other from our GitHub repo as we come out with new versions. We'd have new links to new docs.
Yeah. My immediate thought is I definitely I'm with you on using the Google Sheet. My immediate thought is to maybe create a new one because each sheet looks like is probably going to have a number of tabs to kind of help us get to that set. So maybe if we just call it, we call this original one, version 1.0, and then we create a new one called, version 1.1.
Yep, sounds good.
Okay.
If I may, couldn't we just tag it on GitHub every time we add something? So we could start with like 2.0.0, and the first edition would basically get merged, and that would be 2.0.1. The second edition would be 2.0.2, and successively. I don't know how we would semver it, but like I don't know what a minor change would be versus a breaking change. But just an idea.
Yeah, I mean, there's not. I mean, it's just a link to the sheet. It's not going to change in GitHub. The contents aren't going to change, right?
Yeah, I believe that's correct. Yes.
So this is for the second sheet of, or I'm a little confused then.
We're talking about, so I think to take a step back, we're talking about we need to update our V1 sheet.
Yep.
What we have. So this is not, this
Okay,
is basically
gotcha.
just using
Okay.
the existing GitHub sheet and doing
Fair.
a revision of it. Not GitHub sheet. Using the existing Google sheet and doing a revision of it. So this isn't going to include the GitHub submissions. That'll be V2. So we're talking about a V1.1 right now.
Got it.
Okay, that sounds good. Okay, so then to get started, let me do this. We're going to call this V1.1. Okay.
But yeah, I agree with you, Randall, on V2. Yeah, anything coming in, we should have a new tag or whatever.
I know that like some of the groups were talking about doing like scanning of like bigger, like the greater open source community. So I know that like they wanted it, or I was asked if we had any plans of like releasing it in YAML or a wide range of formats. So that I know that that was something else that we've been thinking about how we could take all the markdown and convert it and make like releases. So therefore, if you're actually going to build an integration that uses these lists for whatever reason, you have a way of pulling them down.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense for V2.
Okay, wonderful. I'm just going to update some notes here. So V1.1 is going to be the GitHub capabilities. Okay, so V1.1 sheet was created. Let's link to that. And I made this just public, so ideally we won't have issues with accessing this document. Okay. Okay, good. And then so we're gonna go through the set, collaborate on a set of proposed deltas, help group recreate, discuss removal. Use the existing sheet with the new tab. Okay. New tab of version 1. Or actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I wonder if it would make sense to just to create a new tab on this. So we have the current tab, which is titled Critical Projects. That could just be our V1.0. Because I would imagine all the other supporting information, like the selection criteria, stuff like that, is all going to be the same. So let's try that. So I'm going to go back to naming this. And this way, everyone already has access to this anyway, which is good. So this is the version 1.0. And then we're going to add in here version 1.1. Okay, so, and I think maybe just because it might make more sense, I'm going to share my screen so you all can look at it and have a common reference point. Obviously, any thoughts or feedback as this is happening, feel free to jump in. So, okay. Yes, so this was version 1.0, the first version that we did, and then created a new tab here called version 1.1. So I think part of the objective is to kind of clean this up. So let's see. I mean, I'm immediately one thing that comes to mind is I wonder, well, maybe it would be helpful if, like, I'm trying to see what information we can take out of this. So I think maybe tracking the language is important because maybe that's a way we could identify like common themes and things of that nature. I wonder if license is a super important data point. Does anyone have thoughts on that?
Here's a question for you,
Yeah.
Amir. Are the languages themselves going to be projects that we're going to consider?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. I think maybe we should. I was going to say start there, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's something that's come up to everyone that I've ever asked an opinion of the list about. Hey, you're missing this language.
Yep. So we need so what we need, I think, is sorry, we get back to the license question later, but what we need is the current list, and then we need a list of proposals, right? And I see we've got some already in candidate projects. I see we have some already in community OpenSSF member editions and some already in survey responses. So we need to put all those onto a new tab for proposals.
Okay.
And then dedupe that and then add stuff like Randall, we could add the languages, whichever ones you want. And then that's kind of, I think that's what we need to get done in these next 2-3 meetings is get that list of candidates cleaned up and deduped so that we can have people commenting on either on candidates, whether, why they should or shouldn't be there, or on lines on the existing list, like why they should maybe be removed.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Back to the license question, I think it's one thing that we were doing is we were taking out anything that was not OSI approved open source license. So it could be a binary, like, is this an OSI approved license? Because some things were put on the list that were not, and we had to just kick it out for that reason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. Because yes, because it goes without saying, but I mean, all of these are obviously open source projects that we're focusing on. That probably goes without saying. It's in the title. But yeah, license. Then so yeah, maybe it makes sense then to, or do we just put like a approved list of licenses and a non-approved list of licenses?
We don't need a list, and we can just point to OSI.
Okay. And then in that case, then maybe we could remove the column and just have a little note saying that, it's a prerequisite is,
Yes.
so
Yeah, we could do that.
actually that brings up a good point. Go ahead.
Can I ask a quick question? Who's the intended end user of these lists?
I believe people have been asking you, so those people.
Because
Right?
most of the people that are asking me are asking it more like, I guess, from an ingestion standpoint. Like, so I don't know. Yeah, I would say that then license wouldn't necessarily, because that's something you can get from a lot of tools. A lot of tools will tell you what license it is, or you just go on GitHub and find out what license it is.
Right.
It's nice. It's a nice column to have because I think we'll revisit it. We'll be like, wait, somebody will say, is that package open source? And we just want to have somewhere where we say, yes, we did look at the license and it is open source, or somebody's like, wait, what was the license?
For the record, we can get licensed pretty easy with criticality score.
Yeah.
Okay. And then let me just add something real quick right here. Prerequisites for all projects. Did I word that correctly? What did you say, Jeff? OSI approved open source license.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, excellent. So then, yes, for the sake of this, and this probably isn't going to let me do it because it's a merge. So, oh, it does. Awesome. Okay, so for the for simplicity for v1.1, we got rid of the license column, and then I think this TBD tier is really the thing that we're looking for, which is, you know, basically approved from v1.0. Is that right, Jeff? Does that make sense?
I think tier, we added that when we were going to start doing the buckets, but then we never did it. But
Yeah.
we can reuse that column.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So like approved from previous version, or
I don't know that we need to start from scratch and like reapprove every single one. I think we're gonna when we send this out for comments, we're gonna want people to say like, probably if it's on the list, we would want people to say reasons to take it off. And we should go through those.
okay. Okay, so I wonder then if so we can just maybe call this first review or something like that.
Initial approval.
Okay, excellent. And then
I would actually say if this list is about to be critical, I don't know if languages is that important. Because in all honesty, like all of it will be important, regardless of the language. And a lot of projects also use a lot of different languages too. So very few are like one straight language.
That is true.
Fair amount, but yeah. But I would say that that's not really needed because I think that just distracts us from like, these are the projects. I think like the link is really needed. I would also say selection criteria. I don't know if I think that's an opinionated thing. I think that might be something to clean up.
So selection criteria captures when we did the initial list, like what are the primary reasons why we decided to include it.
So might it be better to call it like review sources or like the sources we reviewed in order to like...
I think justification is is a good one.
I think, let me just say this though, my fear with the wording on that is that people will think that, oh, because my criticality score was low, I didn't get on the list. Mm-hmm. And from my understanding, that might not exactly be true.
Right, that's not true. So yeah, the justifications are these are the reasons why we put it on.
But wouldn't it be better to say something like sources consulted, or like something along those lines, like we consulted these people? Like when you do a credit score, they say we consulted these people. They don't really point the finger.
Yeah, I mean, the whole point of it is so that we can show that we're not just pulling this out of our hats. We're at least referring to some kind of point of data that that is justifying or providing the reasoning for why you're seeing what you're seeing.
Right.
So yeah, we could always wordsmith, but I think maybe selection reasoning or justification it is pretty straightforward. But yeah, we can always wordsmith that.
Fair. I don't have a better term anyway, so I'm good with that.
Okay. And then I'm thinking then, I mean, if we had like one column that basically just said like, I'll just do it and see what you guys think. Something along the lines of like support or rejection, maybe just call it support or rejection, then because I'm so that like, let's say, in the weeks we're going through this, Or no, because I think this is something we're gonna do as a group. So would this be something like, or I guess like I'm trying to like kind of like simulate what this would look like in my head, and thinking out loud. Does anyone have any kind of thoughts based on what we've talked about so far?
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna need a column where like people can comment for the, for the argument in favor or against
Okay.
for 1.1. I think we want people to use the comment feature, not actually just type in here randomly.
Okay.
The existing comment thoughts are good. We might want to label those as an artifact like v1.1, like so that when people come to comment, they see like what the previous reasoning was, and then they can, know that that was a relic. Yeah, and then they can add their comments. But I do think we don't need people to go and add support comments to every single line, because again, I think we want to do this quickly with 1.1 and just kind of assume that everything that we are pre-approved is still good unless we see comments against it.
Yeah.
So, but if somebody's commenting against it, somebody else might want to comment for it.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know how to title that, or how we'll instruct people to do so.
Let's see. I'm just gonna look at this table we came up with.
Real quick, Amir, we don't have homepage because some of these projects actually have a website. So I think that maybe making a differentiation of where the source is located and where the website is might be good.
Yeah, we had that comment last meeting, right? We might need 2 URLs.
Oh yeah. So like one is for GitHub or GitLab
or source. Yeah, the source
repository.
Or source
repository.
Oh, thank you.
There's some people that are very like, we need to be vendor agnostic.
Yes.
That's not the reason. Don't make things up.
Well, I definitely agree that it is important to be.
That's part of the reason. But
inclusive.
look, guys, sorry to be obnoxious here, but you guys are getting way too officious about this stuff. I mean, this is getting really overly minutia and just sort of like a control freak thing about, okay, how can we present these things? I mean, this is sort of missing the whole arc here of what you're trying to do and where this is going to fit into the open source security foundation pipeline. I mean, this is a matter of hopefully figuring out critical projects that then can be invested in. And it's not about trying to like micromanage, and we get to vote on this and what exactly this. I mean, it's just getting really off track.
I mean, I definitely don't disagree. I mean, it's tough when, this isn't like a single, like if it was like just develop let's say a critical set of projects for the OpenSSF member companies, for example, like that would be much easier. But I think in trying to be accommodative and, inclusive, I think we are getting a little bit bogged down. So, I mean, any thoughts you have on how to do this in a effective but still quick but effective manner, we're all ears. So
I think we just need to sort of throw a dart at the board and just start going, because I think part of the problem is that a lot of these working groups were created not so much ad hoc, but when the OpenSSF itself was still sort of finding its legs, and existed sort of independently of that, and then were brought under the auspices of the OpenSSF. And the OpenSSF and the OpenSSF TAC doesn't really have a overall strategy yet, an overall view. And so there's Alpha Omega, there's all these projects that are sort of related, but there's no real pipeline or workflow. And I think that's part of the problem is that, as I said, okay, we're going to produce this, and it's not clearly, okay, we can create this list, and okay, maybe it can be a check mark or a blog post from the OpenSSF, but it's like, then what? I mean, it's like, okay, what does it mean to consume this? I mean, okay, we give this to people, but there's no real sense of, okay, what are going, and that's why we're getting this, well, should it be ordered? Should it not be ordered? Who might it was ordered? That's why there's sort of no clear message or no clear understanding of where this is going to be consumed, other than, okay, we create, you need a list, come on, get us a list fast. I mean, like, that's, like, it's an end just for the sake of having an end. And that's the problem. And that's, I think, why we don't know what to say for these things, because it's simply a matter of create a list just because, hey, we need a list yesterday. A list, give me some list yesterday. For what? Well, I don't, just give me some list. I mean, that's the problem. And so if that's the problem, and we don't have any sign from the TAC, I say just stop micromanaging this and just create a list, and then we can iterate it after that. But, like, just give them a list, and then you can say, oh, this is what's wrong with it. Okay, well, this is why we did it this way. Then we can move forward and figure out how to refine the list, and not try to get into all of this, officiating, we voted on this and it's infinite, like, give them some list, and then we can, they can say it's right, it's wrong, it doesn't serve our purpose, fine, sorry, well, that's what we do to V2. But just, like, that's my suggestion. Just, we don't have any true guidance, so we'll just do something and not try to get too fixated on perfecting this, because it's not going to be perfect.
Okay. That's reasonable. So yeah, I mean, okay, so with that in mind, so we've got about 100 or about 100 right here from version 1.0, 100 open source projects. We want to basically refine it to get to that final cut for version 1.1. So looks like what we'll do then is we're gonna have basically cross-reference version 1.0 with all of the version 1.1 candidates, which was basically whoever we didn't get to in version 1.0. Cross-reference, discuss as a work group. Yes, no. Should anything else be added? And then I think we can feel pretty good about doing what you were describing just now, David. What does the group think about that?
I don't disagree with David's opinion.
Okay. Get all candidates.
So, Amir, are we going to keep everything from V1 and just add stuff from the candidates list? Is that kind of what we're going to do?
Yeah.
I think we're going to ask people to comment if they think something should be removed, and then we'll go through the comments as a group and decide if we're going to remove it or not.
Yes, as well as I think people can comment if they want to add other things as well. Something we might have missed or not considered.
Yeah, I don't know if we should do that. Because we've already got a good list of comments, a good list of proposals from the last time we released the list.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's a good point.
I think it's more important. I think it's better to just say, like, these are all the projects we're considering. Please like, comment and support if you think it should be added. Yeah, because it's just going to be never ending, right? And yeah. We have another iteration where we're going to get more, where we're going to have suggestions. Like our V2 is going to have suggestions. So,
or another thought, Jeff, is that we could just refine it later on, like what we were just talking about, just making a list right now. We could refine it down the line.
I mean, there can be a V1.2, right? So anybody that, like, is doing this and says you missed this, throw that into some side list, and then maybe we'll consider that in the next cycle. But we've got there's 23 on the candidate projects tab. On the community OpenSSF member additions tab, there's 70. On the survey response tab, there's not, there's like probably like 30 here. So we've got plenty to consider, and discuss.
Yeah.
Already.
Okay, that's great then. I think I think we've gone to a pretty good place. Sorry, go ahead.
Let me ask you a quick silly question. So what are we going to do in situations where people say like Docker? Because Docker itself is not like open source. Project Moby is. So are we allowed to switch those?
Yeah, we should switch it. I think we already had that exact scenario. Somebody's like Docker, and I said we should change this to.
it's in there. It's in there, Amir. Under it's still in there, just for the record.
Yeah, it's probably been submitted in 5 different ways, right? So yeah, that's what we need to do this meeting and next meeting is get these onto. I'll put all those onto a single sheet, dedupe it, maybe take out the ones that if we can do a quick pass and things that need to be switched out or removed.
Well, but the other thing is maybe we should actually include Docker, not to say, but include Docker and say, this is not open source, but is critical. I mean, like just, put it so for everybody's gonna say, why isn't it on the list? Well, it should have been like, we saw it, we understood this is why it's like put in a couple. I'm not saying list every single proprietary and Oracle and everything, but like for the things that people are mentioning, an appendix or something on there and just say, yes, this is important. It's not open source. We agree it's critical, or maybe it's clearly a dependency that people consider for open source. And needs to be addressed one way or another.
There's a few cases like Java is another one that would probably belong there.
Exactly. So you can just sort of,
Yeah, instead of deleting rows, you just copy them somewhere else.
Yeah, just put them in, there's OpenJDK and everything. Like, you can point them in alternatives, but, when it shows up, as I said, however many different times and so many different lists, and people consider it critical. I mean, they aren't. I mean, and we shouldn't dismiss that out of hand.
Excellent. Yeah, that is a great point. Actually, I like that a lot. Let me get that in our notes here.
Maybe, Amir, what we could do is have like a set of like little like stars or numbers and footnotes. So therefore, situations like this can go to certain footnotes.
Great. Okay, so then I think what we can do then for the remaining time that we have is, as we are continuing to discuss have these discussions and ideas and kind of keep track of them. I'll have this candidates tab done by the end of our meeting, so that by the next one we can spend basically doing the updating and requests for comments.
Sounds good.
Update sheets and requests for comments. Excellent. Okay, great.
Yeah, we'll essentially want to work on maybe our instructions that we're going to send out.
Absolutely.
Of what we're asking for.
Yeah, absolutely. Please, any thoughts you have on that, would absolutely love that. I like the comments idea because you can those are tracked, I believe, within the Google Sheet, so we can go back and see, if we wanted to backtrack to, what was the supporting comments for this or that. I think we could access those pretty easily.
Cool. I can add. Do you want me to add where it says package manager, the 9 parent distro package managers? Because Ubuntu, CentOS, and Debian are all communities. They're not parent distros.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Anything to make it more descriptive, more accurate. Absolutely. Yeah, that was one of the suggestions. But
yeah,
but yeah,
should we look
managers.
through this? Should we look through each line right now and see if there's anything that's obviously needs to be
I would say that Ubuntu,
broken up?
Debian, and CentOS are all communities. They're not really like projects, because they actually do have projects underneath them that are actually legitimate, like open source projects.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we got all the candidate projects. Community edition. Oops. Okay.
The way that we describe them in like the Linux community, like the old Linux community where I come from, is there's 9 package managers, there's 9 packaging teams. Therefore, there's the 9 parent distros, which is like Arch, Gentoo, Debian. Ubuntu is not one of them because Ubuntu actually takes everything from Debian. So RPMs, which is Red Hat, and there's a few more. I forget all of them, but yeah, there's 9 in total. I know there's 9.
Okay, so it's really messy, but all of the stuff from V1 that we didn't get to, all the new, basically the new ones, new candidates are on here. So we'll get rid of these 2. Okay, so yeah, exactly. So package managers is too vague.
Yeah, so it's Debian, Arch, Red Hat, Slackware, Gentoo, and then a list of like things that basically no longer exist but are still considered to be important, like Nix OS, which is actually very important because I use it, so I don't want to badmouth Nix.
I think when people put package managers here, they're referring to the language ones like npm and pip and stuff.
Yeah, PyPy, all that.
So software package manager.
Yeah.
We were actually just talking about this earlier today about how in the securing software repos group, we're going to come up with a list and maybe a better terminology, because there's 3 different types of packagings that exist right now.
Oh shoot! We said that there were going to be a bunch. There were a bunch of no's. Let's see.
So in Repology, you can get the list of like the most of them. Repology.
So these, and then the ones that we said we just agreed on were no's from the last time. I'm just going to remove them. a lot of them were simply not open sourced or
Mhm.
just not terribly.
As David said, we should keep them somewhere else in a different tab or
Okay.
something.
Okay.
Can I just say this, that I think that this is one of the obvious problems, that like when you have things like Waterfox on the list, but then you don't have Firefox, or you don't have like SpiderMonkey, or the other millions of things that Firefox or Mozilla actually takes care of. I think that that's where like one of the problems pops up. Just saying.
Yeah. Do you have any immediate thoughts as to what can
I'm gonna go through the
prevent
list.
that?
I'm gonna go through the list, but I think kind of going with what David said. I almost think that we should start with like the core, because I mean, if you're gonna start going with that ideology, there are a lot more important projects to talk about, just from like a hierarchy point of view. Like if you don't have HTTP, you really can't have a browser, right? Or so I would say that maybe like just thinking about it from that way, because I mean, you can get to like, you can go down the rabbit hole really easily. And yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I agree. But, I think the other question is like, what makes a browser critical? Is it that the HTTP works well, or is it that, the JavaScript VM
Very good point.
compromised easily,
No, it's a very good point. Very good point.
So, yeah, I don't know.
But you see my point, but that still goes to what I'm saying, because then you also have JavaScript, and then there's a lot of things there that you could consider critical, and a lot of things that people don't know about. Like I would say everyone knows about Firefox. They don't know what runs Firefox, like the different engines they run behind it, like SpiderMonkey and Duct Tape.
Yeah, I mean, and we want to have cast a wider net for contribution, or for suggestions too, right?
Would it be smart though, Jeff? I wonder to maybe start with core, so that way we don't end up with like let me give you an example. GNOME would not be core because it's GNOME. Like there's a lot of things before GNOME, in my opinion, before you even get to GTK as a toolkit for interfaces. Would it be better to think about core projects before we start going down the rabbit holes of what's happened with these projects? Like here's one, like Docker would be nothing without chroot.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think it's our job to break down the suggestions, and say like, oh, you suggested Firefox, but you really mean this other thing.
Well, I don't mean it like that way. I mean that just in the way of, because I mean, eventually you're going to go down these rabbit holes, right? And it's going to be really hard to justify like something like Waterfox if you don't have Firefox. And if you don't have Firefox, how do you not have SpiderMonkey? Or, what, like there's a lot of things that make up Firefox that are used by a lot of people.
Well, I mean, like, I think we can discuss. So if we have the suggestion of Firefox, and then we get to the discussion in a few weeks from now, or a few meetings from now, and we say like, is this critical? That can be an argument that it's not critical. That you can say, I'm arguing it's not critical because it doesn't include that the Firefox project doesn't include the critical portions that need to be safe, and that's
right.
part of another project, and that would be an argument against it.
Mm-hmm.
And that,
okay.
Yeah.
Because like, for example, we don't have giblibc, I think, on here, do we? And I think all of this wouldn't work with giblibc.
And again, it's not like, giblibc is there, but is that a
it should be.
Again, it's the same argument, it's not just like, would this software exist without this other project? It's which project is critical for open source security or critical for my infrastructure. or critical for supply chain attack, that kind of stuff. Like
Right.
if this project was compromised, how big of a deal would it be?
Right. I get what you're saying, but
Mhm.
I think you also get what I'm saying, where
Yeah,
like
absolutely. No, I get it. Yeah.
it's hard to justify. Like it's really hard to like look at something and be like, but wait a minute, like
Well,
everything kind of depends on
and
this.
again,
So.
it should all be submitted,
Mhm.
To the suggestions and discussed.
So maybe can the suggestions bring up those discussions where like if we are missing giblibc, which we hope, or Moosel even, like both of those are pretty important because Linux wouldn't run with one or the other, and you kind of need giblibc no matter what, unless you're doing a lot of plumbing.
But what's the question?
So my question is like, so can we use the suggestions? Like, so we can, like, they can bring up those situations, right?
You mean like if we're discussing something?
Well, let me put it to you this way. Like, I've been involved in building distros for a very, very long time, and I've pretty much been involved with everyone at this point. So, like I could tell you, there's like core utilities that are everywhere, even in like virtual distros that are not even real distros that are just meant to be boot up in like containers. There's just certain things that I would say are absolutely critical that you won't, like, if you don't have this, it's just not going to run. I know that we don't have everything there, and I know that what my question is, so like we could backwards consider things as they come up.
Yeah, I don't think we should do that with this iteration. I think if we get a suggestion for any program, and that doesn't mean that we should just like add glibc unless somebody else already suggested it, which it has been in that particular case. But in the cases where it hasn't, let's leave that to the process where we will have people person can be you suggest the underlying like critical packages or tools for consideration independently.
I don't know. I'm sort of on the fence about this.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Amir.
Oh, I was actually just going to go back to your point, David, about maybe trying to not think as much about the minutia and maybe some of these situations, and really just put all of our focus on getting something and then iterating on it. So, but yes, go ahead, David.
No, I agree, but I'm on the fence because like I work for IBM and I've seen the same sort of thing in IBM where you'll have IBM clients who saying they'll give some high level, some buzzwords, some that they are aware of but don't understand what the actual requirement is or understand what they're it's on some checkbox. So because they know the buzzword, they know the publicized application, but they don't know that this application TensorFlow really depends on OpenBlast. I mean, so if you actually care about performance, you should care about OpenBlast or Eigen or all, they say, we want Python to work fast. Well, like this is NumPy. So what I mean, so I see that in what Randall said, but I agree, we can't sort of do the, archaeology on every single one of these as well. But I agree, we need to be open to that and not, and me put in a note or something that people are going to put in, again, like a client, they're going to say, Docker, they're going to say, they're going to say what is the sexy thing, what's, the headline, the tentpole type of application, and they don't really know, well, this depends on libxml, and this depends on, libssl, and this, they don't necessarily know about the underlying, dependency tree for this, and that, and I mean, in some ways, it's I think that they're relying on us for it, but we. So I don't have an answer. I agree to not over-engineer this, but
yeah, I agree. Like we're going to get a lot of those suggestions, and yeah,
I just don't want it to turn into a marketing game, because I really hate to sit here and be like, yeah, Docker beat everybody, when that's a really, like, you know, aggressive take. You know what I mean?
Or JavaScript. Well, yeah, we, you know, Node.js or not, you know, JavaScript. Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
Or PHP. Yeah, that's the most, you know. Yeah, I can.
Great. Well, we are at time. Fantastic discussion today. Thank you all so much. I think we made some really good progress on this. So what we will do then, plan for the next meeting in 2 weeks, is to essentially go through these candidates, dedupe them, and talk about them, and justify them, and analyze them, and cross-reference everything with 1.0. Get the full work groups discussion, give also time offline to comment, discuss, so forth, and then hopefully finalized to a version 1.1 that we feel good about, that we can iterate on.
Sounds good. Thank you, everyone.
Great.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Thanks so much, everyone. Yeah,
Bye.
thank you. Have a great rest of your week. Bye, everyone.
Bye.